In 2012, Kenya made history. Deep in the drylands of Turkana, black gold was discovered. It was a moment of hope, a promise of economic transformation, and a vision of prosperity.
I wish to make an important announcement to the nation. This morning, I have been informed by the Minister for Energy that our country has made a major breakthrough in our oil exploration.
The government celebrated, investors rushed in, and Kenyans dared to dream of a future powered by oil wealth. But more than a decade later, Kenya's oil dream has faded. The rigs are silent, the investors have left, and what was once hailed as a national breakthrough is now a forgotten promise. What went wrong? This is the story of Kenya's oil, how it was discovered, why it failed, and what the future holds. Welcome to the untold story of Kenya's lost oil dream.
Oil exploration in Kenya started in the 1950s during British colonial rule, but early efforts yielded no significant results. Over the years, companies such as Shell, BP, and Total carried out surveys in different parts of Kenya, but none found commercially viable oil deposits. In the 1990s and early 2000s, exploration activities focused on northern Kenya, particularly in Turkana County, where geological surveys suggested the presence of oil. In March 2012, Tullow Oil, a British company, announced the discovery of commercially viable crude oil deposits in South Lokichar Basin, Turkana County.
It's a very rare event for an exploration well in a new frontier like this to be a success. We are really pinching ourselves with this result.
This was a historic moment for Kenya, as it became the first East African country before Uganda or Tanzania to discover oil suitable for commercial extraction.
You know that we didn't have oil. I believed oil was there, but there was underinvestment and there was under-exploration here in the country. Before they found oil in Nigeria, they had over 17 dry wells. At Kenya, we had only that one.
Later, other wells were discovered, such as Twiga 1, AMO Sing 1, and Atuko 1, increasing estimated reserves to 750 million barrels of crude oil. Between 2012 to 2014, the government, led by the late President Kibaki, welcomed the discovery as a major economic breakthrough.
Once, as government, we've put together the agreements with the oil companies and the investors, the construction companies, it sets a template.
Kenya quickly began formulating policies to regulate the oil sector, including a petroleum bill to outline revenue-sharing agreements, plans for a national oil company to manage Kenya's oil resources. In 2013, when Uhuru Kenyatta became president, his administration heavily pushed for oil production and export as a key driver of Kenya's Vision 2030 development plan.
Kenya possesses the know-how and infrastructure required to facilitate full field development, which will be marked by the production and pipeline transportation of first oil from Lokichar to our port of Lamu.
The government partnered with Tullow Oil, Africa Oil Corp, and Maersk Oil to commercialize oil extraction. Kenya announced the Lokichar-Lamu pipeline project, part of the Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia transport corridor, which would transport oil from Turkana to Lamu for export. The government also planned to build an oil refinery in Lamu to process crude oil locally. However, these projects faced funding issues and delays.
A new chapter unfolds today in the development and transformation of Lamu, a chapter now that joins the transformation that is taking place in every part of our country.
In June 2018, Kenya launched the Early Oil Pilot Scheme, a temporary program where crude oil was trucked from Turkana to Mombasa for storage and export.
The flag-off and commencement of the Early Oil Pilot Scheme in June 2019 marked the beginning of what promises to be a long but fruitful journey towards full development of Kenya's oil and gas resources.
The first batch of 200,000 barrels of crude oil was exported in August 2019 to a Chinese company for $12 million.
This is an historic event, and it's a milestone that the country has waited to deliver for Kenyans.
However, the program faced several problems, such as transporting oil by road was extremely expensive and unsustainable. Oil production remained low, and full commercial production required further investment.
All those things, we have shelved them until after election. At the time now, we are going to bring the same agenda on the table so that we can start talking about it.
Extracting oil from Turkana required significant investment in drilling, pipelines, and refineries. The lack of infrastructure meant oil had to be trucked over 1,000 kilometers to Mombasa, making it too costly to be profitable. Between 2014 and 2020, global oil prices were highly volatile.
Oil price war between Russia and Saudi Arabia continues to send global prices tumbling. The cost of a barrel of crude oil fell by more than 30%, with Saudi Arabia promising not to relent.
When oil prices dropped, companies hesitated to invest in expensive projects like Kenya's oil fields. The pipeline was supposed to transport oil directly from Turkana to Lamu for export. However, the project never materialized.
Amounts that we have spent so far, close to $2 billion over the last 10 years. The next journey is going to be a $3 billion affair, which is therefore going to make this one of the biggest projects, actually the biggest private sector investment Kenya has ever seen.
Due to low oil global prices, there was lack of investors willing to fund the $1.1 billion project, which would set the pipeline project in motion.
From a financing point of view, if we have put in $2 billion, I think you can trust us to raise another $3 billion.
There were government delays in securing partners, and also Uganda's decision to export its oil through Tanzania, which meant Kenya lost a potential partner for the pipeline. By 2020, Tullow Oil was facing financial difficulties and began scaling down its operations. In 2022, Tullow Oil struggled to secure new investors, and the company reduced its workforce in Kenya.
Business news, Tullow Oil now says it may be forced to shut down its oil drilling operations in Kenya. The firm says it is running out of crucial supplies.
By 2023, the company was seeking an exit strategy, leaving Kenya's oil future uncertain. While everyone focused on the financial crisis, the hometown was collapsing into chaos. Protests erupted in Turkana, disrupting oil operations. The Turkana community raised issues like insecurity and demanded more jobs.
And now we have come to close it, simply because of insecurity. Your cabinet secretary Matiang'i has failed these Turkana people.
Also, the Turkana county leaders claimed that there was an unfair sharing of the oil revenue, demanding a bigger share since the oil fields were in their home. Leaders also claimed that the president had a plan to take the oil for himself.
The attempt by the president to reduce the benefits host communities and counties are entitled to from their oil amount to an attempt to steal from those communities and counties through illegitimate executive orders.
This caused instability in the oil fields and war amongst politicians, delaying oil production.
Mtu akisimama hapa aseme ti Uhuru akona haja na mafuta ya wengine, ashindwe na shetani mshenzi. Mimi watu wasiwe watu ambao watakuja kudanganya Wakenya.
The government eventually passed the Petroleum Act 2019, allocating 75% of oil revenue to the national government, 20 to county governments, 5 to local communities.
Pingamizi yetu ni upunguzaji ya percentage ambayo ingekuja kwa serikali ya county, ambayo imewekwa capping mpaka imekuwa bure kabisa. Imetoka kule juu pesa mingi matrilioni ikakuja bilioni 22. ya jamii community kutoka 10% to 5%, ikaweko tena capping, ikakuwa bilioni 3.
However, disputes over how funds were managed continued.
Mimi napitisha sheria, ni bunge. Mimi ni kuweka naweka kidole. Alafu mjinga anakuja kusema hapa ati mimi nafanya mambo ya hiyo siwezi. Na msiwe watu ambao mtasikia porojo. Mkisikia mambo ya porojo, sio Uhuru atapotea, ni nyinyi mtapotea. Ni nyinyi mtapotea.
The global focus on climate change and renewable energy made fossil fuels less attractive to investors. Kenya, already a leader in geothermal, wind, and solar energy, prioritized renewable projects over oil. As of 2025, Kenya's oil project remains stalled with no clear path forward. Tullow Oil is still in discussions to attract investors, but progress is slow. The Kenyan government has shifted focus towards clean energy and industrial development instead of oil. Thank you for watching the Kenyan oil story. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on more deep dives like this.